Welcome to Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, just to hear it out loud. Join Toby Malone and TJ Young, along with some special friends, as we puzzle our way through what we once thought was an unreadable book to produce a surprisingly listenable podcast. It is Thursday, June 6th, 2024. It has been 21 days since we've started reading, with 61 pages complete of 628, meaning we have 567 pages left to go and are 9.7% of the way through Finnegans Wake. Welcome to episode 6 of Wake, the podcast with a little bit of meaning, a strong purpose, and a vague structure, which fulfills a long-held bucket list item: reading James Joyce's Finnegans Wake out loud just once. I am your host, Toby Malone, joined for a record-breaking 7th time in a row by my very great friend and often collaborator, TJ Young. Happy Pride Month, TJ.
Happy Pride Month, Toby. It's great to be here. It's great to be back.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Today's a very special episode. We're elevated by knowing we have another special guest who's joining us a little bit later. And TJ, without giving anything away and acknowledging you haven't yet heard this guest's contribution, what's your excitement level at right now about this guest?
Oh, yeah, from 1 to elated, I'm ecstatic. I'm just completely up there, especially knowing the section that they're contributing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited to hear it.
Yeah, and I think we may give away the spoiler before we actually do the reading. But in any case, you're in for a nice treat, listeners. So really glad to be back for another episode of Wake, and it's been really fun watching the analytics and statistics tick away for the podcast as it's out into the world. And so one thing I really wanted to say was, welcome to the purists. They found us. That Google alert has turned us up. This week, our analytics showed us some really interesting things, which included the fact that nearly 1/4 of our listeners are in Ireland, and they're in Leinster. Not only they're in Ireland, but they're in Leinster, which happens to be where Dublin is. Obviously, the town that Joyce wrote everything about. So welcome to our Dubliners for joining us. And in addition to that, clearly there's a chain of communication going across from Dublin to the rest of the network, because we also have listeners in Zurich, in Switzerland, which happens to be where Joyce died, is buried, and spent a great deal of his life. So it appears that the purists of all purists have a Google alert going on, listening in as they ready their cease and desist. But we want to reassure all the Dublin and Zurich purists that we are reading with love, if not finesse, and we are working hard to look after Joyce's legacy. We would like to think that Joyce would approve of what we're doing here, hearing it out loud. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, the while we said at the beginning, this is has no purpose and very little meaning. It's we're finding meaning in it. And I think that's what the whole thing is about, really. Realistically, that's how we start every novel. I don't know about you. Every novel I read, I'm like, this means nothing to me. Until, 50 pages, 60 pages in, you're like, oh, I'm actually starting to care. So we're just on the same journey.
Exactly.
Except for we're just not taking the time to belabor over every sentence and every word to try to decipher the pun.
That would take us many years. And there are people who have done that, and I'm all about that. The fact that exists in the world means that we don't need to replicate someone else's work.
Exactly.
And that's why we adjusted our logline at the beginning, where we said it had no purpose or meaning or whatever, because we are finding purpose and we are finding meaning. So it may not be the depth of meaning that Joyce expected, but who possibly can hope to get to that level? I don't know if anyone does. Even those who are writing books and dissertations on this are scratching the surface. But there is another group out there that's looking after Joyce's legacy. I wanted to mention them because I don't see any point in suggesting that others who are doing similar projects are competing with us. I'd like to think that we're parallel boats tracking down the same stream. There's a company here in Toronto called One Little Goat who may or may not be familiar with this project that's going on, but they are staging and filming readings of the Wake, which is taking place in fragments over the next 5 years. And so they're filming it and they're releasing it as a podcast, and they're doing live readings here in Toronto. I'm hoping that I'll be able to go catch one at some point or another. And so the reader of the Wake is a very good Irish-Canadian actor named Richard Hart, who I worked with about 1,000 years ago when I was an actor. And it's really interesting because listening to him perform, and you can look this up on the One Little Goat website and listen to their podcast. He was born in Dublin. He grew up on the east coast of Canada, so he has a very Celtic lilt, and he has the right accent, the right cadence. He goes very quickly. It's a really interesting thing. He brings a lot of humor to it. I especially recommend his performance of the music room scene because he really plays it as an actor, and it's very funny. It's very good. Mm-hmm. And the pace at which he goes really does justice to it. But it's a very different project to what we're doing here. And so that's moving a lot slower than we are. They're only doing a couple pages at a time, and there's a lot of analysis that comes from the director, which is also very interesting. So they're taking the research and that kind of side of things seriously. Unlike us, where we're just trying to hear it and putting it out there. So I want to recommend that you listen to that out there, readers. If you like Our Wake, then listen to One Little Goat's. I believe you just need to Google James Joyce's Finnegans Wake or put that into Apple Podcasts, and you'll find it there. As I say, I see no point in a competition between the podcasts. We're doing entirely different things, so they have my full support. And hopefully they feel the same. They don't feel as though we're just trampling the legacy.
And if they, if we want to just do a apples to apples comparison, imagine they are the ones who have done the whole rehearsal process. They've gone through tech. They know exactly what they're saying. Mm-hmm. Imagine we are the middle schoolers who are first encountering Shakespeare, and we're just like, if I just say the word, then it will be all right.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, and we can... you can listen to one, then listen to the other, and you'll probably get a deeper understanding of the text as you go. I don't know if anyone's getting a deep understanding of Joyce as we read, but who knows? Who knows? I'm trying not to be so self-deprecating and all this sort of stuff because I'm coming really to appreciate the project and just being able to listen to it, listen back and listen to the words flow over me and hear phrases and words in paragraphs that I have no memory of ever saying, but I'm saying them because I can hear my voice saying them, but then hearing them again. And it really is an endless kind of project.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because you'll read something and I can tell when you latch onto something and I'm reading it along with you and I'm latching onto something different. And the worst part is when I'm taking a note and I go back to the page, I'm like, I have no idea where he is. Usually I just find a word in the middle of the page and wait to catch up to that. And then I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of process. Today, we're going to finish the chapter we started last week with the final 13 pages of Chapter 1-3, in which we hear more about the outrages that Dublin have perpetuated on HCE. And so, having read the last couple of chapters where old HCE is knocked around, I think there might be a bit of catharsis at the end of this one as HCE learns to lean back and accept the abuse. I don't know. What do you think of his strategy?
If you can't beat them, join them. It's that person who makes the joke about themselves when they enter the room before anyone else can.
Yeah.
You just got to be in on it.
Yeah, it's that strategy you give to kids. You say, if you show them that it affects you, then they're just going to keep doing it. So maybe just laugh along. So much like last week, it's a fairly tough chapter to pass. Last week was the dense chapter. This week it's fairly tricky. And so one of the major notables that comes out of this is the list that HCE rattles off, explaining all of the mean names that people have called them over the years. This is a fairly bewildering and dumbfounding list of names. TJ, what names did you get called as a kid?
Oh, Cabeza Grande.
Cabeza Grande. This is a Texas abuse.
Yeah. I was just like, wow, big head in another language. Thank you so much.
Was that kids at school or
Oh relatives? Yeah, it was like my best friend at school. Like she thought it was hilarious. Like whenever I would annoy her, she would say it and people would laugh and I'm like, okay, whatever.
That's so good. I mean, I guess you carry a nickname around every day.
Yeah, TJ is a nickname.
Yeah, so I used to get called. So for me, my abuse that really tormented me through my childhood years was in Australia. There's a brand of granola bars called Uncle Toby's Muesli bars.
Oh no!
and they were everywhere. They're a very popular brand, and so the kids would just torment me with Uncle Toby Muesli Bar all day long. And because it bothered me, I let them see it bothered me, and so that really ratcheted it up. So yeah, it was a bit rough. So I feel as though I needed the Cabeza Grande approach of just accepting the fact that, like, yeah, I got a big head, I'm full of brains,
Yeah.
doing something like that.
One of the weirdest ones is, there's a store here called TJ Maxx, which is
Oh yeah.
basically, so people would say, "You got your clothes at TJ Maxx," and I'm like, okay, like, I'm like, and
Very clever.
not like knowing what I know about TJ Maxx now, they're calling me poor, but like,
Right.
it's fine. I was
At
like,
least it wasn't a fat joke. I mean, because TJ
no,
Maxx could be that too. I mean, if you really wanted
exactly.
to thought about it. But yeah, when I was a kid, also there was a TV show, a very popular TV show in Australia that is still running, called Neighbours, like a soap opera. And there was a character on there who was around my age whose name was Toby Mangle. And so people used to call me Toby Mangle, and every day you'd see a kid and be like, "What's happening on Neighbours tonight? What's up?" And that these were the abuses that I got. So I grew up being a little bit of a critic of my name. Because
I got called TJ Hooker, but
to
I thought that was cool.
yeah,
like,
because you're William Shatner.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, I'm TJ Hooker. What's the worst that could happen?
So anyway, so for this week, we're going to split the reading. Not because I don't want to read, but because I think TJ needs a turn. We need to hear his dulcet tones. And so, but with that said, I mean, I don't want to cast any doubt on your ability or fortitude. But this may be the first week where we break out our tap out horn. Which I'll play when the guest can't go on and needs a sub. I'm not going to jinx anything by playing this horn now. But TJ, if you need to tap out, the way you do so is you just give me the timeout T hand gesture. We'll tap out. I'll get in there for you. But I have the fullest of faith that you can read 7 or 8 pages of Finnegans Wake without.
I hope so. I
struggling.
will tell you. So beforehand, because I feel like you've had 60 pages of practice, right? So
Right.
of just like turning your brain off and letting it flow. So I was like, let me go back and read it. And the way that some of the letters are just switched around in the words and stuff like that, it brought me back to my speech therapy days when I used to just do that in my brain anyway. And like,
Right.
I would say words wrong. And so I'm like, I'm supposed to say this word this way. So there's a lot of like releasing. This is going to be cathartic. This is healing. Thank you, Toby. I will bill you instead of my therapist this week.
This is the new form of therapy. It's Joyce therapy.
Immersion therapy, if you will.
Immersion wake therapy, yeah. So TJ is going to read the first 8 pages from pages 61 to 69, and then I'll take over for the rest. The other interesting element today, we already teased it, but I'm going to say it here, is that our guest will be joining us later on, not in person. We've pre-recorded, but my brilliant, literary, incredible daughter, Bridie, will be joining us. She is 12. She's currently at school, so she can't be with us. But she's going to be joining us to read the list of all the mean names that people have called HCE. So I gave her this list last week to prepare, and she looked at it once, and then she went, "Yeah, okay, I got it." And she asked me a couple of questions about, "Okay, what is this? How do you pronounce this? And what is this?" But I swear she then cold read it out loud in her bedroom, and that was good enough that I could have recorded it then and there. It was like she just nailed it. She really understood it. I mean, a child named Bridie Malone has the Irish credentials. She's got it in her blood there somewhere. So I recorded her section a couple of days ago, and I'll insert that into the correct place in the narrative when we get there. And I've also recorded a short interview with her, which I'll play at the end of the reading. As always, we're reading from the Penguin Modern Classics edition of Finnegans Wake, published in 2000, with a foreword by Seamus Dean. Today we're reading the second half of chapter 1 and 3 from pages 61 to 74 in this edition. This is a segment that is entitled The Humphreyad 2, Continuing Study of Other Outrages Against HCE by the Oxford World's Classic Edition of 2012, which also includes brief summaries of what's happening in each subsection, which we will address at the end of the reading. And now, without further ado, Finnegans Wake.
Be these mere marchant tailors' fablings of a race referred with oddman rex? Is now all seen, heard, then forgotten? Can it was, one is fain, in this leaden age of letters now to wit, that so diversified outrages they have still to come, were planned and partly carried out against so staunch a covenanter, if it if it be true that any of those recorded ever took place, for many we throw be yeast to and denayed of are given to us by some who use the truth but sparingly, and we on this side ought to sorrow for their pricking pins on the account. The seventh city, Urvilla, his citadere of refuge, whither, who we believe the laymen and their counts, beyond the outraved gales of Ettrick, changing clues of the Bagglemaster, the Hergerite had fled, Silo tosserement under night's altosonority, ship alone, a raven of the wave. By mercy, Mara, a he whence Raholis from the Ostman's dirt by on the old Vic, to forget and expedite manslaughter and rebirthing and remerriment out of dead sickness to divine previdence. If you are looking for the bliber deer, your ear on the movie tone, to league his lot palm a pate and a papshi. For mine quevy I thee gift take and bind my Hans band I thee halter the was to be land, the lousty land, the luctus land, the emerald ilium, a peasant pasture, and which by the fourth commandment, with promise his days apostolic, were to be long by the abundant mercy of him which thundereth from on high, murmured, would rise against him with which in them were franchisabilis and inhabitus, estes as agora, halo stuffolitis, do him hurt, poor Jinx, ghostly following bodily, as were he made a curse for them, a corruptible lay quick, all saints of incorruption, of an holy nation, the common or ear in garden castaways, and red resurrection to condemn, so that they might convince him, first Pharaoh, Periphas, Chepas, Exechus, of this proper sins business bred to speak with a stiff upper lip to all men and most occasions, the man we wot to took little short of fighting chance, but for all that he or his care we subjected to the horrors of the prime terror of Ireland. Perhaps. We seem to us, the real us, to be reading our Amante in the sixth sealed chapter of the Going Forth by Black. It was after the show of Wednesbury that one tall man, humping a suspicious parcel, then returning late amid a dense particular of his home way from the second house of the Boar and Burgess Tristy Ministrels to the old spot, Rose Corner, had the bar kiss revolver placed to his face with the words, "You're shot, Major," by an unknowable assailant, masked, against whom he had been jealous over Lotta Crabtree, a Panoma Evelyn. More than the win of Waylayer, not the Lucizold Docian, or even the Glendalough Sea, but hailing Fro, the prow of Little Britain, mentioning and a by the way, and he, the craw-sopper, had, in addition to Reed's cutlass Cintablade, a load Hobson's which left only twin alternatives as vice versa. Either he would surely shoot her, the aunt, by pistol, she could be okay sure of that, or, failing of such, bash the Patch's blank face beyond recognition. Pointedly asked the Gaelish Gaul what car blizzard's business Thornton had with the Cane's fender, only to be answered by the aggravated assaulted that was the snaps of him. Midweeks to sultry we go and find if he was showy well able. But how transparently non-true, gentle writer? His feet one is not a tall man, not a all man, not a parson, not a fender, not a lumber, no such race. Was it supposedly in connection with the girls, Miriam Huey or Cloris Archer or Flaggy Bridge? For Anne there is but one live, and her new bridge is her old, or to explore his 12 chamber, and force the chivalry entrance to that heavy belt all body and a butcher blue blouse from One Life, One Suit, a men's wear store, with a most decisive bottle single in his possession, seized after dark by the town guard of Have You Caught Imrod's Temperance Gateway, where there it was there in a gate's way. Fifthly, how parasoliloquy true toned of his first time hearing the wretched statement that, muttering Irish, he had oh gloriously a lot too much hagast of Hoshu, so uh, a Hoshu fine to drink in the house of blazes, the parrot in hell, the orange tree, the giblet, the sun, the holy lamb, and last not least, the Ramington Downs ship's hotel, since the morning moment he could distinguish the white thread from a black to the engine of the laws disclosed to Murray, and was only falling, filled to fluttered, up against the Gatestone pier, which, with the cow's bonnet atop of it, he false took for a caterpillar with the purest peace blessed intentions. Yet how lamely hobbles the hoy of his then pseudo joke's explanation, how, according to his own story, he was a process server and was merely trying to open Zomzies a bottle up, stopped by mortally hammering the magnum bonum, the curter, the club, the sword, the savage, against the bludgy gate of the boots about the swan Maurice Bahan, who hastily into his shoes with nothing, his hat, his howled bara, thin teak, and came down with hump, stemp, and jumped to the till yard from the waist asleep in his obi oni overclothes or choker, attracted by the Norse of guns playing "The Lady is Cartiger" of the Raglar Rock of Dealin, said war praised, safe in bed as he dreamed that he'd wealths in Mormon halls when wonked by a fourth loud snore out of his land of below, while Hinkstray's maws was grazing in the moonlight by hearing hammering of the paddywhack scale emanating from the blind pig, and nothing like oink, oink in it, the whole history of the Mulligan Inn he never. This battering babble lowered the door and side post, he always said, was not in the very remotest like the Belsy babble of the bottle of booze, which would not rouse him out of slumber deep, but reminded him loads more of the Montrawasi Mars of foreign music hants, instrumongs, or the overthrower of the third last days of Pomfrey, if anything. And then, after his nooningless nocturne, the young Rhine came down desperate, and that old Limpopotamus started ploring all over the plains, as mud as she could be, ruinating all the bonchers' shirts and the backers' wisherturgs, so that be the chandelure of the Reger jelly that were all night washing in the weltering Walters of off white. Just one moment. A pension time of the ideal musketeers, Alphos, Burkos, and Caramis, all esterally of the Astrogerries, and for the love of the sauces and the honor of Keevan's pike, puttywhack back to Pamatol, a roll away the real world, the real world, the real world, and call all your smoke blushes, snow white and rose red, if you will have the real cream. For now the strawberry frolic, Folens, Falouche, Cherons la flamme, fam fam. Come on, ordinary man, with that large, big, nobly head and that blanco, bareback, facial expression, Meckenskys, Scapor Polos, Dujan Knox, or other. Your Maclar's mutton's legs getting muscle bound by being too pulled. Noah Barry, Wade Stone 1001, when Hazel was a hen. Now her fat's falling fast. Therefore, chat bags, why not yours? There are 29 sweet reasons why Blossom Time's the best. Elders fall for green almonds when they're raised on bruised stone root ginger through the winters on their heads. If as if octamated round their waistbands. If you'd had pains in your hairs, you wouldn't be so orgabald. You'd have Kali Maricus on your lump of lead. Now listen, Mr. Lear, and stow the sweaty, funny Adams simper. Take that old geezer who calls on his skirt. Note his slick hair, so elegant, tableau vivant. He vows her to be his own honey lamb, swears they will be Papa Pals by Sam, and share good times way down west in a guaranteed happy love nest where May moon shines and they twinkle all the night, combing the comet's tail upright and shooting pop guns at the stars. Cream puffs all to dime every nice Missy McKenzie's. For dear old Grandpapa has gone on Razzledar through gazing and crazing and blazing at the stars. Compris. She wants her wardrobe to hear from above by return with cash so as she can buy her Peter Robinson trousseau and cut a dash of Artie, Bert, and possibly Charlie Chance. Who knows? So toll, Mr. Hunker, you're too dada for me to dance. So off she goes. And that's how half the gels in town has got their bottom drawers and grandpapa's. He's trying to hitch his braces onto his trousers. But old Grum, he's not so clean dippy between sweet and yum. Not on your life, boy. Not in these trousers. Not by a large jugful. For some place on the sly where from pre he isn't by old Grum has his gel number two. Brave vow, old R Grum, and he would like to canoodle her too some part of the time, for he is downright fond of his number one. But oh, he's fair massed on Peach's number two, so that if he could only canoodle the two, Cheeve, Chuve, all three would feel genuinely happy. It's as simple as A, B, C. The two mixers, we mean, with their cherry bum chappy, for he is simply shamming dippy. If they all were afloat in a dream life boat, hugging two by two, in his zoo do, you do, a trough of for thee, Missy, for me, and how came you in this, or for Farber in his tippy, up and down, dippy, tip top tippy, canoodle, can you? Finny. Ock, ock, ock. With which clap, trap, and sodiment, three to a loaf, our mutual friends, the fender and the bottle at the gate seem to be implicit in the same bateau, so the singing bears also several of the end marks of design. For there is the fact no use in putting a tooth in a snippery of that sort, and the amount of all those sorts of things which has been going on once a day in and twice a day out, every other Knoxdog, amongst all things promiscuous individuals in all ages, in private homes, in rebues, public geese, and all over, all the elsewhere throughout secular sequence, the country over and over abroad, have been particularly stupendous. To be continued. Federals, Uniteds, Transporters, Unions, the exultations, the triumphant ecstasies. But resuming inquiries, will you will it ever be next morning the postal unionist, officially called carriers, letters Scott, limited strange fate, Figurindex CX, his height DE, the Lussel that hucks around missive maids, gummy backs, to hand in a huge chain envelope written in several diverse stages of ink, from blanche essence to lavendite, every pot hook and pan crook bespaking the wisher wife, superscribed and sub penciled by yours, a laughable party, with with after right SAG to hide and cheek Edenberry Dublin WC. Will whatever will be written in lappish language, an inburst of Magyar always seen symposed, black looking white and white guarding black, and a semi-mix twax talk use twist, stern, swift, and jolly Roger? will it bright upon us nightly and plunge in our plight? Well, it might not now, miracle, so it light. Always and ever till Cox's wife, twice Mrs. Han, pokes her beak into the matter with Owen K. after her, to see wha smother after, with this Kerberos pouch filled with litterish fragments, lurk dormant in the paunch of the hap brother of a hymn and pillar box? The coffin, a triumph of the illusionist's art, at first blench naturally taken for a hand harp, it is hand wrap and tringuish jubab from jab bowl of either from to boot when all three have been envined have been had been removed from the hardware premises of Oatsenman and nephew as noted house of the gone most west, which, in the natural course of all things, continue to supply funeral requisites for all needed description. Why needed, though? Indeed, needed. Wouldn't you feel a rattin' foul if you hadn't the Oscar? Because the flash brides or bride in their lily boleros on games in the Nevi Nibbies finery ball, in your upright grooms that always come right with you, and a jingo when they do. What else in the mortal world, now ours, when meet their night, mid their knot, me their nact, may their knocked, the hour strikes, would bring the right came would bring them right came back in the flesh, thumbs down to their orsos and their hashes. To proceed. We might leave the nutrients of oxygens to take its free of the air and just electrolysis of the chemicals combination, the gas bag where the wanderers works, and try to pour summer hindrance upon Thelamos fur. In the bottled Helios case continuing, long Laley Tobkins, the special, sporting the fine breast of medals, and the conscientious script reader, to boot in the brick and tin couch round the corner, swore like a Norwegian tailor on the stand before the proper functionary that he was up against a right queer nose of a man in the butcher of the blues who he genuated on last imponing after delivering some car- carcasses, mutton and chops, and meat shoots on behalf of Messrs. Otto Sands and Eastman. Limerick Victorous went and, with his unmitigating astonishment, hicked, hicked at the dun and Doris against all the runes, and when challenged by the pretended hick, it was kick up and down with him, on his solemn by the imputed, simply said, I op pi all oath. Philip's captain, you did as I so stressed before. You are deep knee in error, sir. Madam Tompkins, let me tell you, replied with a gentle womanly Salam MacPartland, the meat man's family, and the oldest in the world except Nick, name. And Phelps with flayful with his peeler, but his fizz fell. Now to the obverse. For velveteens to dismiss is a five finger spun, and hence these camelback excesses are thought to have been instigated by one or either of their causing causes of all. Those rushy hollow heroines in their skirt sleeves, be she uh, migrated, be she the post. Oh, oh, because it is a horrible thing to have to say today, but one Delilah, Lupita Loretta, shortly after, in a fit of the unexpectedness, drank carbolic with all her dear placid life before her, and paled off white. The other solid dove, that's her sister in love, Luprica Latoche, finding one day while dodging chores that she stripped teasily from binocular man that her jams were Jim joyed to see each other. The naughty girlie soon found her fruitful hat too small for her, and rapidly took time look so rapidly took to necking, parting and selling her spare favors in the haymow and the lumber closets or the greednaw ad hoc. There are certain intimacies in all ladies' lavatories we just lease to imagination, or in the sweet churchyard close itself for a bit of soft coal or an array of thin trunks, serving whom, in fine, that same hot conny a la zigara, which one own little grania and the childred cheeks dished up in the great sire of Oscar, that son of a Coley. Horai of the coast of Emerald, Ara of the lascive Poghu, Asalam all Muslim, the resigned to her surrender. Did not she come Lister even, true daughter of the Dearmund? Her pitch was 40 steps, and her perch old Cromwell's quarters with so Valkyrie a license as set many a poor pucker packed to perdition. Again and again, aye, and again said there him, tease Fido, tease Fido, tease Fido, twos topples, topple, stop, dug of a dog, of a digior ye, Anglos me, as and did not he, like Akron 40, far off Bisavolo, misbrand his misbehaviors with iridescent hue cry of downright mean false sop lap sick dope? Twa Volksdreck, a Rhine of the she Ben Quinn, a queen of pranks, a kingly man of royal mane, regally robed, exalted by his be his glory. So gave, so take. Now not now. He would just amend, suffering trumpet. He thought he want. Wath, here, oh here, living of the land. Hugbred dead era hark. Hee ha, eyes ravenous on her lippling lils. He hear her voice of day gone by. He hears, zay, zay, zay. But by the beer of his prophet he cannot answer. Up to putty till rise and shine, nor needs none shaft ni stelly from Fenica of Little Asia to oblique on the spout, neither Poblock, neither Folkestone, nor sunkenness in Tomar's woods, the be wary how Eris gangs score off the rude. The mouth that tells not with will ever attract the unthinking tongue, so long as the obscene draws theirs which hear not so long, till all earth's dumb nation shall be blind, lead the deaf. Tacho, 20 yeeklings. The column of lumps leads the patron and the leaves behind us. If violence to life, limb to chantels, often not has been the expression, direct or through an agent male, of womankind offend. Ah, has not levy of black male from the times the fairies were in it, the fane from wild Erith blossoms, followed an impressive private reputation from whispering sins? Now, by memory inspired, turn wheel again to the whole of the wall, where Gant Blant fronts Pelinamore. There was once upon a wall, and a hoog wall, as what a was, and such a wall hole did exist, ere or ire in Ireland, or you dyer's hair, or you diggin' Moses, or you hoard or of orts or orintants to garble and gathering of Odin and the lost pale days when all the Edmonds end with Avis. Amen. The Don. And theirs is still to see the Magnus if you strike the louse for it, and will come to the bare gazed shoe shines if you just shudove a second. And let Oggs be good, old Gaggles and Ister Esther play Yester Oster, and the dram of Sortost Eris diseased. a stone-hinged gate, then was for another thing, while the Suramtimist had bought and enlarged the shack under fair rental for the yearling sheep, prime, value of sixpence, and one small yearling goat, cadet, value of eightpence, to grow old and happy, hog it and kid it, for the remnants of his years. And when everything was got up for the purpose, he had an applegate of the place, by no means by some pretext a bedstand, to loo thereof to keep out donkeys. The pig dirt hanging from the jags to the hours makes the clear, and just then abouts the iron gape, and by old custom left open to prevent the cats from getting at the gout, and the triple locked on him on purpose by his faithful porters to keep him from probably and possibly Initor. He felt like sticking out his chest too far and tempting gracious Providence by a stroll of the people plaid's eggs day, unused as he was yet to be freely clodded.
Oh, by the by, let's we brag of praties. It ought to be always remembered in connection with what has gone before that there was a North rumour, Herr Bettrefender, out for his Zimmer Holdigs, digging in number 32 at the Ram and Punction branch of Dirty Dick's Freehouse, in Laxlip, where the sockeye salmons were stopping at the time orange fasting. Prior to that, a commercial Gorba Patio, he was reeking like Zentral oil rubber. From Osterich, the USE paying, Gall saved the mark, 11 pence in the week. Gosh, these holy romads of conscience money in the first deal of July, wheel he was, swishing bee's nest with blessure, and swabbing brogan eria Schmith brocken Dutch, making his reporterage on Der Fall Adams for the Franco-Furto siding, a fastland pay rodicule, and constated that one had on him the Lynn O'Brien, a meltoned lamb's wool, disturbed and wider, he might the same Zurich chicken, other he would, with 2 cent and ober to send on tonneau waters, one monkey's damages become. Now you must know, Franksman, to make a heart of glass, that the game of gaze and bandstand butchery was merely a patio-strap tissue of threats and abuses, such as Roebuck's Roch at Pinnacle's Peak and after his sort. Humphrey's unsolicited visitor, Davy, or Titus, on a Burghley's clan march from the Middle West, a highly excellent crude man about road who knew his bull-fussed mountains like a starling beard, after doing a long dance to untitled the Cloudy Green, deposed his box stump on the Wake You May Want Me, after having blew some Quakers, for you, oats, in through the house king's keyhole to attract attention, bleated through the gale outside, which the tailor of his clothes was hogger-collaring. First be the hirsute that he would break his bullshewigger's head for him. Next be the heel tapper that he would break the gauge over his lanky duckling head the same way he would crack a nut with a monkey's wrench. And last of all be the stirabouter that he would give him the thumperoms or any bloody else's, thicker than water to drink, and his bleeday step brohars into the bucket. He demanded more wood alcohol to pitch in with, alleging that his grandfather was all taxis, and that it was only after 10 o'connell, and this his isbar was a public oven for the sake of Irskersky, and then, not easily discouraged, opened the wrath floods of his artillery and went on at a wicked rate, weathering against him in mixed metaphors from 11:30 to 2 in the afternoon, without even a luncheonette interval for House, son of Clod, to come out, you beggar, to be executed, amen. Earwicker, that pantomime, that paradigmatic ear, receptor attentive as his, if Dionysus, long-suffering, although whitening under restraint in the sitted-out corner of his conservatory, behind famine-built walls, his thermos flask and Rhypidian flabel by his side, and a walrus whisker bristle for a tusk-pick, compiled, while he mourned the flight of his wild Guinness, a long list, now feared in part lost, to be kept on file of all abusive names he was called. we have been compelled for the rejoicement of fine ladies in the humours of Milltown, etc., by Josephine Brewster in the collision known as Contrastations with Inkerman, and so onward. Lacey's in Lewwater, Flea, Celestials, One Clean Turve,
First Nighter, Informer, Old Fruit, Yellow Wigger, Wheat Ears, Goldie Gate, Bogside Beauty, Yas, We've Had His Bananas, York's Porker, Funny Face, At Baggety's Bend He Bumped, Grease with the Butter, Open Door Auspices, Canonabler, Ireland's Eighth Wonderful Wonder, Beat My Price, God's Soil Man, Moonface the Murderer, Hoary Harry Hoax, Midnight Sunburst, Remove That Bible, Heb Dromedary Publication, Tummer the Lame the Tyrannous, Blau Clay, Tight Before Tea Time, Read Your Panta Joke, Acoustic Disturbance, Thinks He's Gobblast the Good Duke of Argyll, W.D.'s Grace, Gibbering Behemoth of Dublin, His father was a Munzucker and she had him in a growler, Burnham and Bailey, Artist, Unworthy of the Homely Protestant Religion, Terry Cotter, You're Welcome to Waterfood, signed the Ribbon Men, Lobster Pot Lardling, All for Arthur of This Town, Hoosh the Cat from the Bacon, Leather Togs Donald, The Ace and Deuce of Poppering, O'Reilly's Delights to Kiss the Man Behind the Borel, Mago Gagog, Swad Puddlefoot, Gouty Gibbeline, Loose Luther, Hatches Cox's Eggs, Muddle the Plan, Luck Before Wedlock, I Divorce Thee Husband, Tanner and a Make, Go to Helena or Come to Connie's, Piebald Puff Puff His Bride, Purged Out of Burke's, He's None of Me Cousin, Bear Baron Peculiar Person, Grunt Owl's Factotum, 12 Months Aristocrat, Lycanthrope, Flunky Beetle Vamps the Tune Letting On He's Lonely, Thunder and Turf Married into Clandorf, Left Boot Sent on Approval, Cumberer of Lord's Holy Ground, Stodge Archman, Aunt Uke, Tommy Furlong's Pet Plagues, Archduke and Cabanger, Last Past the Post, Keneally Won't Tell Thee Off Nancy's Gown, Scuttle to Cover, Salary Grab, Andy Mac Noon in Annie's Room, All Out, Twitch Bratch Spalls, Bombard Street Bester, Sublime Porter, A Ban for Lee King of the Bergans and a Bomb for Ye Sir of all the Rutledges, O Philim's Cut Price, and at number 111, What He Done to Castle Costello, Sleeps with Feathers and Ropes. It is known who sold Horace the Rattler. Enclosed find the sons of Fingal, swayed in his falling. Wants a wife and 40 of them. Let him do the fair. Apg Quani Chimmock. Plout goes his wassail. Ruin of the small trader. He bing milking honey beaver brooker. V was a vendor. Sour rapes. Armenian atrocity. Sick fish belly up. Edomite. Man devoid of the commoner characteristics of an Irish nature. Bad Hamburg. Harab. Cuckoo handler. Dirt. Mitching daddy. Born burst feet foremost. Woolworth's worst. Easiathic philosophist. Guilty pig's bastard. Fast in the barrel. Boose in the bed. Mr. Fatmate. In custody of the polis. Boal's allocutionist. Deposed.
But anarchically respectful of the liberties of the non-invasive individual, and did not respond to solitary wedgeword beyond such sedentary, though it was as easy as kiss anywhere for the passive resistant in the booth he was in to reach for the hello gripes and ring up Kimmage outer 17.67, because, as the fundamentalists explain, when at last shocked into speech, touching his wounded feelings in the future, the Dominican mission for the Sao Celius Potty was on at the time, and he thought the Raumish devotion known as the Holy Rosary might reform him. Gone. That more than considerably unpleasant bullocky, before he rang off drunkishly, pegged a few glatstones of all size, by way of final mocks for his grapes, at the wicket in support of his words that he was not guilty, but after he had so slung-a-volleyed, reconnoitring through his semi-subconscious the seriousness of what he might have done had he really polished off his terrible intentions, finally caused him to change the bowling and leave down the whole kurumus of brook pebbles pang-pung, and having sobered up a bit, paces his ground old diablend lion dub, the flay, the phlegm, the floaty fleshener, Percy first, I'll splish the splume of them all. This black backblocks Boer brusquely put out his language and quite quit the paleologic scene, telling how by his self-denying ordinance he had left Highland on the dissenting table after exhorting Earwicker, or in slightly modified phraseology, Messrs. or Mrs. Earwicker, seer his feminizable name of multitude, to Coco come outside to Mockaloo out of that for the honour of Crumlin, with his broody old flishguds, Gog's curse to him, so as he could brine slog and burst him all dizzy, you go bail like Potts Fracture did with Kettle Flatnose, and nobody at all with Holy Famus, and build rocks over him. Or if he didn't, for 32 straws, be Cacao Campbell, he didn't know what he wouldn't do for him, nor nobody else no more, nor him after which, Batel, Martel, a Brisher, a Miller, a Stroker, a Buller, so the rage of Malbrook, playing on the least change of his Manchester's voice, the first heroic couplet from the fugal, tropical, opus elf, thoughty toe, my schemes into abeyance for this time has had to fall. They bit good bite to their thumb, and his bandole ere his soldier drip drop drap on pool or polger, wishing the loft for Philadelphian on the morning, proceeded with a hubble-forth slouch in his slips backwards, a cure heckhelly, in the directions of the Duff and Dem institutions, about 10 or 1100 years, lurch away in the moonshiny gorge of Patself on the Bach. Adieu! And thus, with his Rochely Exeter of Bullyacre, came to close that last stage in the siegings round our arch citadel, which we would like to recall if old Nestor Alexis would wink the worth for us as Baird le Duc and Dog and Doris and Bangen op Zoom. Yed he med leave to many a door beside of Oxmond walled, for so witness his chambered cairns a cloud let litter silent that air at brows up hill and down coombe and on Eolithostron, at Howth or at Coolock or even at Enniskerry, a theory none too rectiligne of the evaluation of human society, and a testament of the rocks from all the dead unto some the living. Oliver's lambs we do call them, scatterlings of a stone, and they shall be gathered unto him, their herd and paladin, as nubelets to Cumul, in that day when, same the lightning lancer of Azava, Arthur honoured, some fin avant, he shall wake from earth sleep, hot-crested Elmer, in his val of briars of Greenman's rise. Oh, lost leaders live, the heroes return, and o'er dun and dale the Wolverlurval Lord protect us. His mighty horns shall roll, Orland roll. For in those days his deus shall ask of all pro home, and call to him, all pro home, and he make answer, add some, nor wink nor wunk, animadi bolum, mini credisti mortuum. Silence was in thy faustive halls, O true eager, when thy green woods went dry, but there will be sounds of many mirth on the night's ear, ringing when our patriarch of Cumstown to Novel gets the pullover on his boots. Liverpool sought a bit of it. His brains coolt parish, his pelt Nessie, his heart's a drone, his blood streams a crawl, his puff but a piff, his extremities extremely so. Fengless, Palmbroke, Chilmaya Brend, and Boldo. Humph is in his doge. Words weigh no more to him than rain drips to Rethburn him, which we all like. Rain when we sleep. But wait until our sleeping drain stops. That was the second half of chapter 1-3 from Finnegans Wake. TJ, what do you think?
I feel you on the fact that your brain just does something different while you're reading it out loud. You're just like, words are words. But then I
Yeah.
caught myself, I think because I've had, the past 4 or 5 episodes to just sit back and listen, I've caught myself trying to figure out what the wordplay was while I was saying it. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. You can't do that. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. But yeah, it is very meditative.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And at the same time, I was like, okay, so a dude walked into a bar, put a gun to someone's face, and then I was like, and then I lost track of what happened to him after that.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't let you grab hold. He really takes you off on a journey. And I really appreciate, like, we're just watching you read and listening to it go through. I really feel as though the sound and the rhythm of the reading, even when it's not exact.
Mm-hmm.
So both of us sort of have moments when we fall over words, but I still feel as though that deconstruction of the word is exactly what Joyce is doing in the first place. He's deconstructing it down to some other sound. And so making a new sound that's still equivalent but different is also part of the process. I think I don't know if it's supposed to be. I know that everything was carefully selected, but yeah, listening to it and still getting the sense, even though the words weren't always exactly the same as what were written down, but it was the same intention. I found that really interesting too.
Yeah. And also, like even just looking at the last word of this chapter, dopes, like what, like part of me was like, go back and write this all out phonetically, Joyce. That way, because like, what does that sound to you, right? SDOPS. Like, what is that? Because the S and the D just in the mouth in the English language, it just doesn't. They shouldn't bump up in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kept wondering about what it would look like if we took a scene from one of your plays and rewrote it phonetically, like really sort of.
Oh yeah, broke it down.
Took every word and broke it down and sort of tried to Finnegan the Inseparables.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Oh, that'd be an interesting.
We'd be like, we're done. But like days and deus spelled DEYES.
Mm-hmm.
But the wordplay lives on the page, but it also lives phonetically out loud too.
Yeah, there's so much interesting stuff that goes on. But before we get to going into all that, we also had a special guest join us. Bridie Malone joined us to contribute to her. She did crush it. She is a very smart 12-year-old. Here's a short interview with her so we can hear what she thinks of the project. We recorded that special interjection into the reading a couple of days before we actually did the other reading, but I'm here. Would you like to introduce yourself? What's your name?
Hi, I'm Bridie Malone.
How old are you?
I'm 12 years old.
What grade are you in?
I'm in grade 6.
Oh, okay. And so, full disclosure, what is your relationship to me?
I'm his daughter.
That's right. So, thank you for doing a bit of a reading on Wake for me this week. What do you think of it?
It's good.
It's good?
Yeah.
Do you like reading, usually?
Yeah, I like reading.
What kinds of things do you usually like to read?
Like fantasy novels.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite book?
Percy Jackson.
Ah, okay. That's pretty cool. Okay. And so do you think reading Finnegans Wake is a lot different to Percy Jackson?
Very different.
Yeah.
The language is very, much more difficult.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a bit of a challenge, something interesting. Are there any names that you read there that are funny to you? Anything that you like the best?
Magogagog.
Oh, oh, yeah. There's lots of really good ones in there in that list. I thought it would be a good one for you to read. And because you're the best reader I know, I thought who better than to fill in and to read this list. Now, these were all mean names that people called HCE, who's the main character of this book. What do you think if all of these names were things that people called you?
I'd be confused.
If someone called you York's Porker?
I'd be very confused. I'd be a little scared because I don't know what that means.
Yeah, okay, but that's okay. I think I think that's part of the joy of it. Is lots of different things. And have you got to listen to any of our podcast yet?
I mean, I've listened to like a couple minutes of it.
Really? Why? Why did you listen to it? What did you just find it yourself, or?
Well, I know this guy who introduced it to me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where was he playing it?
He was making it. Yeah, and he was playing it in the car too.
So what you're saying is that you were a captive audience. You had no way of getting out. Someone was driving a car, and you had to listen to a Finnegans Wake podcast.
Yes.
Well, you're a very good sport about it. What do you think of this whole project? Like, when I think you were the one who was kept asking me every now and then, Dad, did you read Finnegans Wake yet? Remember?
Yeah.
From when you were about 8.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
But do you think we're going to be able to do it?
At this rate, you seem like you're doing pretty well.
Well, thank you, Bridie. I really appreciate it. It's nice that Puff Puff, his bride, is in there. So your name is in this section here. So you got to read your own name. So we've already heard of a Bridget in this, and a Bridie. Or a bride. We call you Bridie, which makes you very Irish. So I appreciate you doing this for me. It's a big favour, and you did it so well, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Okay, go to bed.
Okay.
So cute.
Yeah, she really is.
The podcast just went up on the wholesome meter. Like that's
Yeah, it was a real treat to have her participate, and she did it without too much questioning. So, good kids. What do you think of Bridie's contribution to the?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I also love how hard she hit the word bastard.
She asked me a couple times, "Am I allowed to say that?" I said, "It's written down there." And then you'll notice that Joyce had a couple of points where he actually replaced some words with some dashes. If you're reading along, and so I asked her to. I filled in some other words. I said, "Just say these words instead," and then I just bleeped them out. So. So it sounds like she's swearing under the track, but she really isn't. So if her grandmother's listening, she should know that I'm not.
And it's written. It's written.
Yeah. And so the words there. Yeah, some really fun names in there. I think if anyone were to abuse me for not giving them beer and by calling me Leather Togs Donald.
I know, right? It's like, okay,
you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, have a beer. There's lots
sorry.
of...
If you call me an Armenian atrocity, I'm like, it's what? Golly.
Yeah, there's some really good ones in there. So, yeah. And then, of course, artist.
Yeah. Ouch, sir.
Do I look
by
poor?
Unworthy of the homely Protestant religion.
Yeah, I mean, the chapter that we read was pretty dense. Again, I mean, so in terms of the summary, let's go back to the Oxford World's Classic just to sort of see what it says. So from 61-28 to 64-24, HCE took refuge but experienced hostility and a battery at his gate. 64-25 to 66.9, and the girls, an interludic canoodling in a canoe of a young girl and an older man. Conflict is universal.
I like the way this old man's like, I just want to be with you, and she's like, no, I'll take your money and that's it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll canoodle her too, and she's also like, no.
Oh, yeah, then 6610 to 67.6, and the letter or coffin, both containers, question mark.
The illusionists, what do you say? Something about the illusionist, like the coffin being the illusionist's something or other. I don't remember. The words just washed over me.
67.7 to 67.27, a police account in court of the encounter. I think that one came out pretty clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then back 67.28 to 69.29, the two girls again, and blackmail, the gate, keeping him out of trouble. So he's locked the gate to his pub. He said, I've had enough. No more of this. 69.30 to 73.27, this was a fun one. Battery at the gate. A German lodger abuses HCE because he won't give out any drink. Resisting peacefully, HCE simply lists the abusive names he's called. And then 73.28 to 74, HCE has left his mark. Now he rests. So a lot is going on in there. And lots of really
said,
interesting.
I've heard worse. As a matter of fact, here you go.
Yeah, and so I'm still not going to give you any drink, and the German finally accepts that fact. Yeah, lots of really interesting wordplay in there. The night, the knack, the naked, the naught. Moments like that to the top of 67. I really find that repetition. And I think next time someone claims something erroneously, to say, you are neep d in error, sir.
Yeah.
Is a very good way of explaining that. How do you fight back against phrasing like that?
See, isn't it fun to kind of sit back and be like, oh, this phrase, this thing?
Oh, yeah, I've got so many circles around different things. Another shamming Dippy on page 65. He is simply shamming Dippy, but I was like, it's another band name.
I was like, there was those words. I don't remember them.
On page 64, there was a phrase that could be a BuzzFeed article. There are 29 sweet reasons why Blossom Time's the best.
Which is great.
Yeah. You feel like, it's a listicle. Okay.
Yeah,
Joyce.
Thank you.
And then my favorite section is on page 65. Just the phrasing. I know you're always good at pulling out the poetic things that you think, damn it, how did you pull something so beautiful as this and then just dump it into the middle of a page 10% of the way through this opus. But this is on page 65 toward the top, when May moon she shines and they twinkle all the night, combing the comet's tail upright and shooting pop guns at the stars.
It's so, I remember when I was reading that, I was like, this is gorgeous.
Yeah. So yeah, it's you can see exactly where we're at, and that idea of the canoodling and the old man. You go, man, I understand why you got the wrong idea. Look at this atmosphere.
Yeah, she's like, look at us on the porch at night. We're like counting stars. Nah, I just want your money.
And the action, like you said, the action with guns and the robbery, all the stuff happening on 62 and 63. It sort of pokes its head out every now and then and says, something's happening here.
Yeah. Also, on page 74, in the second paragraph, is just silence was in thy Faustive halls. Just Faustive halls alone, I think is. I'm like, that's so smart.
Yeah.
I think the thing is like these small turns of phrases are what people would base like whole entire chapters on. You know, like that combing the comet's hair would have been like a contemporary writer's like, and this is the beautiful phrase in this chapter.
That'd be the name of the book.
Yeah.
You pull it out and you were like, I'm going to call the entire collection this. Joyce doesn't care. He's like,
I got it. Look at the skill.
It's really interesting. It really reminds me of the concept of the palimpsest, which is about sort of marking and remarking. It's sort of like taking a pencil and writing a word and then erasing it and then writing the same word over the top, or writing a variation on the word. And I kind of feel like there is something extremely palimpsestuous about Joyce's writing here, because he's clearly written a sentence and he's going back and maybe he's revising the sentence. I don't know. I mean, I may be speaking out of turn in terms of his process, but it feels very much like a lot of these things may not be the first word he used, but he's gone back and he's corrupted the word, or he's embellished the word, or expanded the word. But so many, it does feel intentional. There's a lot in there where I think it almost does him a disservice to suggest that Joyce is stream of consciousness, because stream of consciousness kind of suggests no planning, but there's clearly a plan here. You can see why it took him 16 years to write this thing.
Yeah, there's no way that he decided to corrupt Holy Rosary on the first try that way, and then he's like, wait, it's Howley like Rousery, like to force the pronunciation, but it's only for those two words within the longer sentence. It's very well constructed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Like page 63, all those repetitions that had.
Yeah.
All those kinds of things. Which it's interesting to think about how many. I mean, I always think of this about. So my other career, I was a Shakespearean, and so you spend a lot of time. Everything Shakespeare did, there's industries just analysing every syllable of every letter of those works, and you've got every now and then you stop and you think, how intentional with some of this? Like, did Shakespeare think of this, or are we just reading into it? And some of it, you go, it'd be interesting to know if there were things in here that were just typos that now we're gleaning meaning from, or how much has he gone back and maybe we want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I feel, but back in the day, Shakespeare, he was pop art. He was doing the thing. So like, he was just like, I'm turning this out. This turn of phrase, cool. Yeah. And then he's like, when we do the play again, I'll edit. But this is something that he's like, he's probably like, I'm going to write this paragraph, and I'm going to look at this paragraph for 3 days and figure out all the ways I can do all the wordplay in it.
And as soon as you corrupt a word, the echo of the real word is still there. And so you're sort of expanding it out. It becomes, I don't know, there's a lot of layers that go on there. In one interview, Joyce was heard to say, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he essentially said, if the entire universe stopped tomorrow and the only thing remaining was Finnegans Wake, then we could reconstruct humanity from Finnegans Wake.
That's crazy.
Because everything's in there. Like all of human existence is in this book. If you expanded it out, it's like the Rosetta Stone of human existence.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, good for him. That's called confidence in your work, right?
Yeah. I will say I'm upset that I tripped over the word parasiliquizingly, and I was just like, I get this right. I know all those syllables and all those sounds and the way they should go, but my brain is like, nope.
And just describing on page 63, describing an excellent bottle of whiskey as a most decisive bottle of single.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, okay. If that's, again, you're gifting your father-in-law a bottle of whiskey. It's like, it is a most decisive bottle of single.
They're like, all right, you pretentious,
Look, so much in here. There's but then so little that we noticed. And which is part of, I think, part of the joy of it. I think washing it over. And for me, listening, I kind of got into the habit of reading, which meant that by the time I got to my bit, I was itching to get going. It felt like being
let's go
in English class in grade 6 again. But I've gone, when's my turn? But it really is a different kind of experience, listening and allowing it to wash over you and finding those things and trying to find meaning. And it's interesting because you, like you said, when you read, you try to find meaning, but when you listen, you also try to find meaning, and whether or not for better or for worse.
Yeah. And it is meditative. It's strangely meditative, especially in this format. Because, if we were reading it by ourselves, we'd go back and be like, wait, what does that say?
Which I think is why people don't get past the first few pages sometimes. They just go back and they do what the theatre company here in Toronto are doing, which is sort of doing 4 pages at a time and then going back and really unpacking it as they go, which is great. But that's going to take, their stated aim is to take 5 years to do the entire reading. Yeah, we only have 5 years.
No.
So we're but we are at the end of episode 6. For another far less cute episode, join us next week where we'll keep going on our merry way with another guest who will be joining us with a different kind of expertise. I've been Toby Malone, joined by my co-host TJ Young, and I can confidently say that we have gone further than anyone expected, present company included. So join us next week for the first half of Chapter 1-4, entitled The Humphreyad 3. The story continues describing yet more outrages. See you then, same 3 listeners. This has been Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, just to hear it out loud. If you've made it this far, thank you for your dedication. Join us next week for another segment of Finnegans Wake and a chat about what we've found. Wake is a Moon Street Media podcast, engineered by TJ Young and Toby Malone. Our theme song is The Ballad of Perce O'Reilly, arranged and performed by Meg Logue after James Joyce. Wake is recorded in Canada, where Finnegans Wake is in the public domain. For community and bonus content, join us at our free Patreon at patreon.com/wakepod. If you have questions about Finnegans Wake, don't ask us. We're just as confused as you are. See you next week.